So for me, there is movement in stillness as there is stillness in the movement.
So, welcome Dimpy Menon to my space. And every time I welcome a guest to my show, I always try and remember the first time I became aware of them or of their work. And in your case, I have told you this story multiple times that I met your art before I met you.
Yes.
And yeah, I used to like, I told you the story. I used to pass
Yeah.
by this gallery where you had doodled a human
Yes.
figure
On the wall. Yes.
on the wall and of a human just cradling a lotus.
Yes.
And I would always be on the lookout for it because few lines, but so much warmth. And
How
then
sweet.
I remember meeting you, I think a few months after that. And I don't remember how long back it was, probably decades ago. And it was
Yes.
an exhibition of yours.
Yes.
And I was just struck by your warmth, and I saw where that, the warmth in the art was coming from. Because I
That's so.
think you are somebody who kind of, I've said this multiple times to you, you're somebody who looks at life like an unfolding, miracle. And
Yeah.
you create in your likeness because your your human figures, they're not restricted by time, space, guilt, shame, pain. They just soar above everything. And looking at them is like, so uplifting. Just like meeting you is like taking a lesson in how to live, you know
Oh, that's you're just too kind, Reema. And I think this is also a reflection of who you are. What you see in is who you are. So I think that's it. I'm so happy that you see this in the work. And I've always been extremely fond of you. Again, right from the time we've met, and you're one of the very few people who get what I'm doing. You right from the start. Now, you always understood, always had a very refined way of thinking. And that's an artist's dream kind of a uh, you know person to look at the work.
but this is your space. I want to focus on you. And one thing that has changed from that time is the scale and the reach of your work. Now your work graces international galleries, collections, public spaces. You've won a very prestigious international award. You've been written about by foreign critics. But one thing that hasn't changed is, of course, your focus on creating joy and
Yeah,
focusing on that, not just how life is, but how it can be. So this is the
that's
first thing that I wanted to ask you: is this something that you have intentionally cultivated, this perspective of life, that you want to focus on the miraculousness and the wonder of life
yeah.
rather than all the stuff which is not working out, which is dark and ponderous?
Yeah, I think, Rima, the dark side and those kind of things are things that are out of our control. Anything negative is, things that happen are so out of our control. And I feel where my work is concerned, I am really in control. And I feel that because I really do not want to eternalize anything that's negative in my work. I've it's yeah, I think I'm so grateful, that I have this, that I've been given this kind of a gift to be able to express myself. And life has been very kind in that way. As you said, the scale has now, over the years, I have had the opportunity to make larger works. I always thought large. It wasn't as if I didn't think large when I was younger. It's just that I couldn't afford to do large works. So I think that there has been so much of grace in the opportunities that I have got, and I'm ever grateful for that.
When you started, you kind of graduated on top of your class. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
at
yeah,
government.
that's something that you just kind of because your folks at home are always talking about all these these kind of markers, and yeah, so that I think ultimately when I went and started doing art, I was doing well, and otherwise I was a really a difficult student in school.
But I remember this reading this and that you had graduated on top of your class from the Government of Arts and Crafts in Chennai in 86, correct?
Yes, yes,
86?
must, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
must be, yeah.
So, the one thing that I always wondered about is why you chose sculpture, because it's a challenging medium in many ways.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
tell me if there were many girls in the class who were pursuing it, and did anybody discourage you? And why did you
yeah.
choose this particular subject?
Yeah, yeah, I've always felt, right from a very young age, I always liked to make things, with my hands. And, even if it was things like plasticine or, just found objects or whatever it is, like pebbles and, making shapes out of them and, something that you could identify as, something. I gave a form. I wanted to bring forms, and I always felt that sculpture is an honest medium. You can feel it. There is absolutely there's no illusion in it. It's what it is. You can see a sculpture 360 degrees. You can feel it, you can touch it. To me it's a very real form of art. And yeah, when I joined college, in my class we were very few girls, and it's majorly boys who were in the class, and there was nobody who was taking sculpture. So I kind of went through 5 years of college without any girl student in the sculpture department. So that was, yeah, that. And I've always been, I don't know, I think I enjoy hard work. I just enjoy. I'm one of those people who just enjoys hard work, whether it is gardening or cooking, or I like to do things from scratch. And so I enjoyed etching again very much, because it's an arduous process, as is sculpture. It's a so I think it's just that I was drawn to something that needed me to be completely 100% immersed in the practice.
Yeah, and I see the same quality in your life also, because I've been lucky enough to visit you at your home, and every
That's
single inch is imprinted by your passion for beauty and art. And even your windows have been, they have patterns with the different kinds of paints, and it's a beautiful, such an immersive experience just to be in your home around you. And
so,
I have been to your studio as well, and that's a very raw place. That's got a very raw, a different energy where a lot of stuff happens, and there
so yes.
and you make these larger than life things. And I just recently saw images and videos of a work which is probably your largest um, so
Yeah,
far.
yeah,
Yeah.
single work. Yeah,
So
definitely that.
and I've seen like you're such a petite person, and you're just going at it with your tools, and you
Yeah.
managed to complete this imposing figure which is towers. And I want to know the challenges of a medium which is as challenging as this. Not many people know the process of sculpting something that
Yeah.
big. How long
Yeah.
does it take? What are the challenges physically also for you to create something like that?
Physically, it's extremely challenging. And again, as I said, I've always been the type who enjoys a challenge. And it's yeah, there are the lost wax process, which I use, is an age old process, hasn't changed over the years. It's a very, it's full of heat and dust, so it is a very difficult medium. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And this large work, what happens is you have to be completely present when you're doing that work. You can't a large work like that, because I was on stilts on a kind of a raised platform, scaffolded one. And I couldn't even because normally when you work you tend to walk back, and you for perspective to see how the work is coming. So I had to be very conscious. I didn't listen to music. Otherwise I normally listen to music while I work. I just, because I had to be completely aware that I shouldn't fall off that perch, when I walk back, and I just had, so all these things kind of make you completely present and aware of what you're doing, and therefore it heightens the enjoyment of the process. And I really like that. And there's a lot of thought that one has to give, the physics of the whole thing, how it works, and the limitations of both my body and my space. So it was like, this sculpture, he was literally going through the roof. So we had to dig a pit so that we could put it further down, so that the head wouldn't go through the roof.
How
So
tall was it and how tall was it?
the piece is about nearly 14 feet. And I've done large works, Reema. I've done a lot of large sculptures which are about 9 feet, single figures, and maybe the composition is much higher together, with three figures or whatever it is. I've done floors of that, but I haven't done a single figure. That is, so this one really asked a lot out of me. And so I'm very grateful that I even, as you said, that space has a completely different energy. It's really a, it's a I would say kind of an armpit of a place, but it allows me to do whatever I want to do. And I don't have to worry about the neighbors. I don't have to worry about, it's because everybody around there, he works with their hands. The next place is a carpentry studio, and so everything over there is conducive for me to work. And I think the whole thing is that I'm, as much as I'm very happy in beautiful spaces, and I want everything to look very nice, and I'm also very grateful for that space, so I don't have to clean up, because I can throw things, I can do whatever I want, and it's there. I don't have to, at the end of the day, sit and, except do the basic cleaning, but otherwise, there's nothing. So yeah, that was a challenge which I really enjoyed, and very happy with the way things turned out. And it was really a huge learning for me. That work was literally and figuratively a huge learning.
You told me also about, how many times you've injured yourself, small
Yeah.
injuries, big injuries. Um,
Yeah.
but they don't seem to stop you, and that you just kind of take them in your stride and you continue. But
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about how vulnerable sometimes you may feel while creating something which is so big. And what
Yeah.
kind of injuries, I mean, have you kind of suffered, and how did you kind of recover from them? The fear, also the psychological impact of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Reema, the thing is that, yeah, I've fallen. I've kind of broken the tendons of my right hand, and so there's a constant pain, and I have a tailbone fracture, and all sorts of things, and all thanks to this. It's just occupational hazards. You can't do without that. And I think this thing of wanting to overcome, and at the end of it, when the result is makes you happy, I think it feels worth it. I really feel, and I it's kind of dramatic to say, but every work has your blood and sweat, and so that I think makes it all the more meaningful. So
Right.
I think if I've chosen this, I have to be prepared for all that comes in my way, in terms of the hazards and the kind of things. And it also makes you think very clearly, because you can't afford not to be present. You can't afford not to you've got to be careful. You've got to be, so many things which normally as an artist you tend not to worry about too many things. But this is a kind of thing that draws you back into yourself, and you're aware of every step of the work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the my angst is all satiated in the process. It's not in the work, it's in the process. Because the whole thing is that at the end of it, one should not see all that struggle.
Hmm.
The work should not have any sign of that struggle.
That's what I find so remarkable. I think, people, when people say optimism is, naive, it's not something that's practical. And
Yeah.
I feel it's a very hardworking emotion, optimism. I mean, people who are optimistic usually work very, very hard to
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
optimistic. And I really feel happiness too is a like really hardworking emotion. Like you said, it's a process where you go through so much to kind of reach a point where the struggle is not visible, but the happiness is, the fulfillment is,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, so I also wanted to ask you, like, there are so many, you know, the last few years especially have been challenging for all of us, and for somebody
Yes.
like you who lives such an intense creative life,
Yes.
for you, how was the pandemic, and
Yes.
what were the things that you kind of learned from that phase where you couldn't go out and you couldn't do the things that you wanted to do and create the way you wanted to create?
Yeah, actually, Reema, I think in terms of the way the pandemic has been for both of us, for Suresh and me, is that it has actually been almost like our lives before the pandemic. Because we both are kind of loners in our work, and I particularly, I kind of think of myself as a very gregarious hermit. So I was basically, it was my work, it was the studio, it's the home, and that's it, because after that there is no time for anything else. So during this thing, it kind of made me even more grateful and aware of all my good fortune in terms of letting me work. And I actually moved the studio back home for at least about a year and a half, and I did some of the large works. I did an 8 foot sculpture here, and it was the various challenges, because after I finished the work, the guys who work with me in the studio, who help me mold making and things like that, they would come and take the molds here in the house, and then I would run upstairs, and we'd be all far away, all socially distant and things like that, and then a truck would come and take the stuff, and then I would cast it, and then it bring it back here, and I would do the finishing. So then I realized that if you have the will, if you really want, your desire is so strong that you want to work, you will find a way to
Find a
work.
way.
Yeah, and that's the learning from this, that I really felt that I learned how. And now that I'm back at the studio, I really will not take anything for granted over there either. Just so happy that I can go, and I can, I don't have to, I can be a kind of a queen in the studio. I can do stuff, and and work, and then I can tell them to come and cover the work and stuff like that, which, whereas here I had to do everything on my own. In terms of wrapping up the sculpture would take half an hour just to wrap up the sculpture, so things like that. So I think it's been a very nice time, for me particularly. It also gave me a lot of time in the garden, things like that, which, and I always loved gardening, but at this time we didn't have any help for anybody to come and water the plants and stuff like that. And I had so many blooms that came up, which didn't come for about 7 years before that, 7 8 years, or even longer. So I think even the atmosphere was so rid of all its the pollutants and things like that. So it was a love, it was a good time. And I also think that lots of people, I really, Reema, I'm very thankful for the fact that lots of people wanted commissioned me to do sculptures at that time. So I was never without work in terms of large works, because small works I do anyway, but the larger works I will only do on commission. And I think people also realized how important their spaces
Hmm.
were. Having it, they did everything if they could, in terms of if they could afford it. People really made their places beautiful. So I think that's because earlier, you didn't have to focus so much, you didn't have to live all your life within your four walls. So I think that was a good time, and I'm very happy for that. So I have no complaints, except that it was a very uncomfortable time, in terms of there is a gloom and a doom about the fact that that you can't visit family or friends, and you can't have people over. I think those were the very sad things, and the sad things of seeing how the entire thing panned out for the rest of the country, for people who did not have. That was all terrible. But for my personal work aspect, I didn't suffer at all. I must be honest.
You've spoken about your husband, and he's bringing out a book now. He's been a prolific writer all through the decades that I've known you. Um, how important it is. I know that there is such harmony between you two because they both are creative people, and as you said, both are creative hermits. How
Yeah.
important it is for somebody like you, who has this intense, need to express yourself through your work, and it's not something that you do, just incidentally. It's very intentional. It's very passionate.
Yes.
For a partner to understand that need, how important it is for a partner to get that, because somebody who's less maybe sensitive would not get it. This drive
That's true.
to, going
Yeah.
every day to the studio and doing this work and getting injured and still going back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know. I again, I can't tell you how blessed I am, Reema, really, really, because Suresh is my sounding board. He's my, my tech go-to guy. He's everything, and he has to listen to all my woes about what happened, what went wrong. I mean, because he doesn't do that. I'm not a sounding board for his work. Okay, because half of what he does, I have no understanding of. I don't know cricket, and I don't know sport very well, and but this whole thing of you really need to have a supportive partner. And when I say partner, he's my partner 100%. It's not in certain aspects. So exactly as you said, I go to the studio every day, and I come back and I moan and I groan, or I'm excited or I'm elated. When I was doing this 12-foot fella, it started off as 12 foot, went on to being 14 feet. But the thing is that I would really be so happy when I came back exhausted, and then again I had, he's the guy. He has to listen to everything that I say, and I tend to talk a lot. So it is very nice to have. I'm really very, very fortunate, and I think he's a solid feminist, and I also gave birth to a feminist. So I'm, the two men in my life are feminists, and they've been supportive all along.
Right,
So that's yeah, so
right.
that's
One of the
good
most
answer.
one of the most moving stories that you told me once was how, after the 26/11 attacks,
Yeah,
you were commissioned to do uh, a big sculpture for
yeah,
Trident, and
yeah,
it was a 7 feet
yeah,
sculpture, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
right.
it was supposed to signify, resurgence and healing, and kind of, you know putting yourself back together again. uh,
Yes.
do you remember what that moment was when it was unveiled, and do you remember anybody coming to you and saying something to you? And I know your work is like deeply impacts people and it brings so much optimism and joy to them. Would you share
So,
anything, that the kind of feedback that you've got for your work over, you know the
yeah.
years that you
It,
have
it,
worked?
it, yeah, it's a very, I always think it's a huge compliment when people put down money to buy your work. It's I think I always think that way. And over the years, I found that I've also had repeat customers, a lot of repeat customers, which again makes it not customers, buyers. So, and also I have people who are second generation who come. Now they've started their homes, or they're setting up offices, and they come and tell me, Dimpy, my parents, I grew up with a work of yours on the here in the home. So we really enjoyed it, and now in our own homes. So those are all very, very it makes the artist in one feel really very happy. And yeah, I have a lot of people who come and ask me to do works for their husband's 50th birthday, or so they're gifting works. I think it's also, people have tastes have evolved. I think India now is in a place where willing to accept local work. It's not, they're not always trying to acquire something that's across the seven seas or whatever it is. So they've realized that there are homegrown artists who can still make their homes beautiful or their offices beautiful or whatever it is. So I think those are things that have been very nice. Also, yeah, the fact that Mr. Oberoi himself personally called me and said, Dimpy, I want you to do this. It's really a pleasure to work, for when people really appreciate your work. It's
Right.
again challenging, but it's very nice. It's a very lovely feeling.
And it became kind of an embodiment of hope,
Yeah,
after
yeah.
all
I
the
think that
violence and all the pain and the.
yes, yes, yes. I think that's always been my endeavor to just always have that kind of a feeling of hope, feeling of, as you were saying, soaring. And I don't ever want the heaviness of the medium to be expressed. I just want these heavy. Some of them are 100 kilos, but they are balanced on a single point or whatever it is, or on a ribbon, and there is a feeling of flight. So it's kind of, I just wanted to take your breath away for a little bit. How is this, how is this possible? So that's something that I myself am very excited to see how the work is complete when it is complete, because I know the process. You do it in bits and pieces and then you put it all together, and for that moment when I see the completed sculpture, I am so thrilled. And then of course I lose interest in it, because then the next work that is there is the most thing that consumes me. I then start finding fault with that old work, because then I see all its shortcomings and things like that. So yeah, it's an exciting process, and it's never the same. I
Right.
was just telling the other day, God knows, maybe some, thousands of sculptures I have cast, and but each time something new goes wrong, and so then you learn from that. So there's never, I just don't know, I can't ever say that this once everything went off perfectly. It never is like that. Sometimes when I'm doing the clay work, a large work, I suddenly go back to the studio and a whole arm has fallen off, or the whole thigh. In fact, last week, my entire 1 week's work was just completely, everything just fell, because we had this 2-day curfew. And so when the sculpture was wrapped, I think it absorbed a lot of the water from the cloth and stuff like that, and not having been open for 2 days, when it was opened, it just kind of fell in pieces. So it's something that you 1 week's work, and a lot of yourself has gone into it, and it takes it just makes you feel miserable. But so the whole thing is that there's always this up and down, up and down, up and down, but it's all part of the game.
Right. Right. um, there's also this whole process of, like you said, learning. And I also see a lot of like this mindfulness in everything that you do, because you have to be present in that moment, you have to be focused.
Yeah,
And you are living in a time where people have very the attention spans have shrunk so much, where
that's true.
your engagement with social media is more tangible than your engagement with life. And the news cycle is constantly throwing up bad news, and uh, you are never, in a way, you're programmed to keep all the tabs open and you're not focusing on one thing. But you
Yeah,
have shown with your work and your life that, if you focus on one thing very mindfully, you are going to be able to achieve something remarkable. uh,
that's true.
how have you cultivated this discipline, because it's so difficult in these times to not be distracted?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's extremely addictive and things like that. But Reema, I just have to, my thing is my priorities. What are my priorities? I want to keep a good home. I want to cook good food, and I want to make good work. So that's the kind of thing. So when I do spend time, I'm not saying that I don't, but I have some rules which I have imposed on myself. So I will not touch my phone till about 9 or 10 in the morning. I get up early. and those 4 hours or 5 hours, I will not touch the phone. So there are some few rules like that I have. And I also, I used to be a news junkie. I used to read, because when I worked at home, I have a TV in my studio, and I'll just keep that on to just have that that din of a sound. And but now I'm just completely, I realize that it just revs me up, it just completely makes me get all agitated, and here I am trying to make something that's very elegant and very beautiful, or whatever it is, and I have this horrible stuff going on all the time, and it just makes you anxious for no reason, and that you're helpless, you can't do anything about it. So I've given myself a complete news fast. And yeah, so I don't put on the I don't watch any of those screaming, shouting channels, or any channel. In fact, now, Reema, you might notice that I think most channels, because they have the same people everywhere, that pitch is the same, and it's that pitch that kind of, just before you sleep, you've got all that, you get anxious, though you don't know what it is about, you get anxious, and you carry that to the bed, so I've just learned how not to let it affect me.
Right. Finally, one thing that your art has taught you, and what has it taught you all through the years that you have practiced it? And it's a very sacred thing for you. It's not like I keep repeating myself. It's very intentional. It's something that you do with a great sense of purpose. Uh, what have you learned from life? Because I want your take on it, because I really admire how you live it, how you the full beauty of existence that you have. You don't just create it, you are grateful for it, and you bask in it, and you communicate it to other people through your work. So what have you how have you found this wisdom, and what have you learned from life and from your art?
Yeah, I think it's just a pure accident, Reema. I think I haven't, it's just that I have been fortunate to, there have been misfortunes also in my life, but I have been very fortunate to have, all these factors come together without great effort. But the greatest thing that I think, and Suresh always would say, it's a great gift to know that you're happy. So I am aware, I am so grateful that I'm aware that I have been given I have definitely been given, I'm not saying I'm a great artist or whatever it is, but I have been given some I have been given a language, I have been given a skill, I have been given some amount of creativity that has led it, and it hasn't been given to everybody. So I am really grateful that I've got it, and I'm not going to at any stage belittle its value, and I'm not going to take it for granted. So I think my learning from the whole thing is to recognize that I have this talent. I don't want to sound all self-important, and also the thing is that I don't have a sense of entitlement. I don't like that whole thing, and I really think that I have to be grateful that I was given this gift, and I must use it well, and I must be aware of what it is. I must be conscious of the fact that I am definitely special in certain aspects. I feel I have been blessed with that. These there are lot of blessings.
But the biggest blessing is that you know how to value your blessings.
Yes, I really think, Reema, I mean, you will understand that really well, that how it's such a sheer pleasure, pure pleasure, to be able to express yourself in something and see the result. Isn't it? I mean, I think all creative people are especially blessed, and I think the more we acknowledge it, the more we accept it, it's just going to grow bigger and bigger and better. I really think that as I'm aging, I'm doing larger works. I'm doing, as I feel, there are a lot of impediments in my body, but I really feel that, the sheer muscle memory, the sheer opportunity to keep working has in some way, given me a kind of a method in my work, which I couldn't have learned otherwise. If I didn't do so many works, I wouldn't have learned from each work. So I think all that, one has to be so grateful for the fact that I have these opportunities, and that I'm aware of it is also something that I'm very grateful for.
And lest anybody think that you've had it easy, you've not, because you work every single day. You work very, very hard, and it's
Yeah.
not easy work. And it's something that you have created through great effort and great hard work. So I'm just very blessed to know you and to be inspired by you. And
Uh,
I hope that you keep on creating. And
yeah.
someday soon, I hope to come back to your beautiful home and to your
Yes, I hope.
studio and see you at work. And
That's
more
lovely.
power to you. And may you keep spreading this joy all over the world with your.
Thank you, Reema. Same thing back to you, from your lips to God's ears. I hope the years ahead are going to be really productive and creative for all of us. And, thank you so much. I've always enjoyed talking to you and reading, and even seeing all the beauty. And you really understand beauty. I appreciate that very much, because you get why, how, small things that give you joy. It's not necessarily only big things that give you joy. I think even the smallest things that can. And again, you are another person who realizes that you can draw joy from everything,
I'm
and you don't
I'm
dwell on anything.
I'm not as evolved as you are, but
I
I'm
know
learning. I'm learning.
it's that's very sweet. Yeah, I'm sure it's always nice to, again, to be a student of life all the time. And I think that's another thing, that's another quality, that you don't take yourself too seriously, and you keep learning. And otherwise, then you've done it all, you've seen it all, and you've imagined it in your head. Then why do you have to create anything? So it's, again, I'm thankful for that. We don't have that kind of an attitude, that we are you know ready to start something new and ready to get on to the next thing.
Yes.
So that's
So
nice. I think that.
let's meet soon and wish you all the best as always.
Thank
And
you
take
so
care of
much, Reema.
yourself
You
and
too.
see you soon,
Yeah. See you
hopefully.
soon. Bye. Thank you so much, Reema. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Reema, and if you liked what you just saw, then do like and subscribe, because remember, this is a safe space for people to talk, share their stories, to hear each other, and basically make some time in their busy lives for unboxed conversations.